Oh snap, a definitive edition for Sonic Frontiers just got leaked? Cool, I love that game. I wonder what they can improve on outside the pop-in. Oh, hold on, eCommunity posted. Okay, I'll see what they posted. Wait, what? So, Sanzaru Games, the studio we've known as the studio that brought us the PS2 port of Secret Agent Clank, remastered the Sly Cooper collection, developed Sly 4 on the PS3 and Vita, Sonic Boom Shattered Crystal, the much better Fire and Ice, and they assisted Toys for Bob with the development of the Spyro Free portion of the Reignited trilogy, before getting acquired by Facebook in 2020 and eventually getting shut down at the start of this year. Oh, I hate the fact all these studios are shutting down in the current year, dang it. And don't even get me started on what happened with BlueKnight. I am so ticked with that, because they got screwed over by a live service game, and all their other pitches got turned down, with the exception of one that got sent off to another developer altogether. So yeah, rightfully ticked off. Granted, Sanzaru did find some success with their VR endeavors under Facebook, and all seemed good for them until they got shut down. Alongside the closure of Ready at Dawn, the developers of Daxter PSP and The Order 1886. Daxter is a fantastic game, by the way. I played it for the first time in decades after my PSP died, when it eventually got added to the PlayStation Store a while back. I definitely recommend it. It's a fun time, miles better than Lost Frontier. But with the news of Sanzaru Games' shutdown a few months ago, it makes things all the more frustrating for me as both a Sly Cooper and a Jak and Daxter fan. As we know, Sanzaru Games already had plans on paper to finish what they started with Sly 4's cliffhanger. That was back in 2019 via an interview with Kinda Funny Games 2 months before the acquisition took place. So, in other words, apparently Sly 4 didn't sell good enough for Sony to greenlight anything else from Sanzaru. Apparently, not even DLC for a game that's already out. Not even a Sly 5. It's kinda weird, considering Sly 4 sold around 240,000 more copies than Ratchet & Clank Into the Nexus, both of which launching on the PS3 during the PS4's launch year. If we're going by VG charts for Sly Cooper, which I understand isn't the most reliable source for sales data, but that's all I got. Now, Ratchet's originated from the Insomniac hack from a few years ago, so it's way more reliable. And Ratchet was able to continue with more games, a movie, and an animated short, which Insomniac Games still hasn't acknowledged whatsoever. All of that despite potentially selling less if that Sly 4 data is accurate. And after managing to get some work done on Sonic Boom and the Spyro series with Reignited, it became clear that they were a passionate studio for these older platformer series, and that's honestly great because a lot of studios kind of wanted to move away from them for more realistic and live-action movie-like games. Now, don't get this twisted. I enjoy my share of realistic games. I like the Uncharted games, Insomniac Spider-Man games, Horizon, heck, I just got into Tomb Raider last year, and very much look forward to the new ones. So I like some of them, okay? I just think there's way too many of them. And if The Last of Us getting remastered for the millionth time isn't an indicator of anything, I don't know what is. Which brings me to the topic of today's video, the main topic anyway. So, as I'm recording this on March 25th, Jak and Daxter eCommunity over on Twitter posted this. It came from LinkedIn from a former Sanzaru Games employee because obviously Sanzaru Games is shut down now. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the video first and then provide all the necessary context and my thoughts afterward. Also be sure to subscribe and hit that bell if you like the video so far and want to see more PlayStation content. Anyway, here's the video.
Man, that stung! I told you we shouldn't have come here, and you listened! What? Okay, I'm fine.
Okay, with that out of the way, what is the story behind this recreation of one of the most iconic scenes in the Jak and Daxter series? You know, Daxter's transformation. Well, here's the story. Travis Howe, animator at Sanzaru Games from 2018 to 2026 because, you know, Sanzaru Games closed down this year. He had this to say about the animation over on his LinkedIn profile. A long while back, a team was assembled to pitch a remaster of Jak and Daxter. I was asked to animate an IGC shot for shot to show what this updated version would look like. To be abundantly clear, this was not commissioned by Sony, nor did they have any involvement in our proposal. This was essentially a fan pitch to try and gain their permission. Although the remaster wasn't meant to be, I'm really proud of how it came together. By the way, if you still want a remake, like and share, and let's get the word out. This was shown with permission. Under this post, he also had this to say. I wish I could credit everyone involved. Please tag someone if you know they helped out on this. Huge props to the incredible Tyler Bronis for his work on this. For those that don't know, Tyler was the senior character artist at Sanzaru Games, sharing his model for Jak over on his official ArtStation page back in 2021. So basically, this was how Sanzaru Games was able to gain permission to essentially make Sly 4, but under the condition of remastering the original Sly trilogy before actually getting to do Sly 4. Although in this case, it wouldn't be the, typical definition of a remaster, because Activision has really screwed up the whole meaning of it by simply interchanging what remaster and remake mean, because nowadays they're kind of interchangeable between remaster and remake and so on and so forth. But me personally, this is way more than what the Sly Cooper trilogy is. This is a fully ground up remake, or at least what one would look like. In other words, it's not the exact same game that looks the same, but a little bit clearer, and maybe higher frames. No, this is from the ground up. Brand new visuals, brand new coat of paint. I mean, just looking at these particle effects in the background, and the pile of dark eco goop Daxter leaves behind after he gets launched out of the pool of dark eco. I mean, there is a lot of flair here, and it kind of gives me Spyro Reignited vibes, because yes, the studio did work on the Spyro Free portion, and honestly, I'm a little bit biased because Spyro Free is my favorite of the Spyro original trilogy, but also it is a little off-putting because whenever we've seen Jak, specifically Jak, in a higher definition, clearer view, it's always been his Jak Free design, whether it be PlayStation All-Stars, Move Heroes, Rift Apart, it's always been Jak Free. Jak 2 almost never gets repped. Jak X did get some in All-Stars, though Jak 1 definitely does get a bit more rep compared to the others, aside from Free, because he did get updated in Jak 2's intro. But that's on top of the already major graphical and tonal leap between entries, though not entirely an HD update, which we did eventually get in the HD collection on PS3 during the game selection menus. The only other time I can think of is in PlayStation All-Stars with the Old World costume that's just Jak 1's outfit on Jak Free's model. Astrobot doesn't count, so don't even ask. But this pitch model seems to be based not so much on Jak's Precursor Legacy model, but rather his younger self that appears in the intro of Jak 2 and the playable character in Jak X, seeing as that one is the most up-to-date. But ever since I posted the official model from the pitch animation, I've seen a lot of people not really vibing with this model, almost exclusively regarding Jak's face being too chubby, like he got stung by a bunch of wumpies.
Hey kid, you take care. Oh, and trust me on this. Stay away from any wumpy nest on your 9th birthday, okay?
You failed to heed your own advice, Jak. While this doesn't appear to be noticeable in motion, looking at the model like this though, I can kinda see where people are coming from. Though personally, I don't take issue with this because I was always under the impression of this always being the case with his younger design. And why he looks the way we know him to from Jak 2 onward is because he was locked up and experimented on for 2 years. There were a few complaints mentioned about Daxter as well, but Jak's definitely outweighed those 10 to 1. At the end of the day though, this is just a pitch. Had it been greenlit, a lot of those design issues would have probably been taken care of. Just look at Spyro. Toys for Bob were making tweaks to Spyro's design throughout Reignited's marketing cycle. And this does remind me a bit of Reignited. A little bit of Sly 4, and I honestly can't be mad about it, because it still feels like Jak and Daxter to me, just updated to modern graphics and adding way more expression than ever before. Remember, the duo haven't had a new game since the PS2 with The Lost Frontier. That was 3 generations ago. They're gonna look unusual because of a massive multi-generational leap instead of the same console leap from before, especially Precursor Legacy Jak. Either way, I really like this. I really like the way it looks, and it looks amazing. I mean, I would certainly pay for it, and obviously, this would get some tweaks by the time it would fully release, because after all, this is a pitch, not yet greenlit. So, that's just how things go in this industry. But no, I would pay money for this. And with the series' 25th anniversary being this year, I still don't understand why PlayStation may not even celebrate this year outside of merch, which we've seen for Sly Cooper time and time again. Though in Ratchet & Clank's case, the 25th anniversary is next year, and they are working on the PS3 emulation, so maybe the rest of the series can actually be available to purchase by next year, I don't know. One thing I do want to point out about all this is Travis did say that this pitch was made a long while back. So this would have had to have been made before the whole Facebook acquisition back in 2020. Because after that, they can really no longer do anything outside of Facebook stuff. So no Sly, no Jak, no nothing. It was all out of reach. Now, I do want to circle back to Tyler Bronis, because he shared Travis's post and had this to say. This was such a fun pitch to work on back in 2019. I made the Jak model, environment art lighting, and the editing camera work. Props to everyone else who helped out. So this tells me that this was potentially Sanzaru's final game pitch before the Facebook acquisition. Now, I also heard that they might have never actually got around to pitching it, but I also wasn't able to verify a source on that. And if Sony did actually turn them down, an offer for one of their most legendary IPs, it might have led to them accepting the acquisition offer. Of course, that part's just pure speculation on my part. I got no way of confirming that. Though Travis did tell me directly via email when I asked him about it, that the team finished making this pitch around October 2019, about 4 months before the acquisition took place. And, as we know, acquisitions do take some time from start to finish, depending on the size of what's being acquired. If it's a publisher buying a single studio, then the process seems to take almost no time at all. If it's a company buying another company, like Xbox and Activision, that can take years from start to finish. So to me, it seemed like there was a chance to pitch this to Sony, but because the acquisition was either starting up or getting too close to finalizing, Sanzaru might have thought it'd be better to finish the pitch animation, leave it as is, and don't pitch it to avoid complications with Facebook agreements. Outside of those two options, that's the most I can come up with for why this pitch, well, didn't get pitched. Though for the sake of turning this video into a complaint fest against Sony for possibly no reason, which this video was mostly going to be until I learned when the pitch video was finished, so I had to restructure this unscripted video, which I promised more of, into a partially unscripted video to represent more accurate information. So, I'm gonna lean on the idea that Sanzaru just didn't have the time to pitch it amidst the acquisition process. But yeah, there's not much more to say about this other than it being pretty dang sad that this never came to fruition, and we lost a studio that was actually passionate about these older platformer IP and wanted to breathe new life to series like Jak and Daxter in a very good looking way, after already doing so for Sly Cooper. While I personally enjoyed my time with Sly 4, I don't have nearly as many issues as other people do. I think the animation upgrade was the biggest benefit of Sly 4. The gameplay felt a little off. The writing I was okay with. And yes, I'm okay with the stuff like the Penelope betrayal. But other than that, I did enjoy Sly 4. My main real nitpick was Carmelita's design change. That was Absolutely nonsensical. I don't really understand why they felt they needed to do that, but there you go, I guess. And of course, for cliffhanger, I cannot forget about hashtag Free Sly from Egypt. Now, what about the hypothetical scenario that Facebook wasn't about to acquire Sanzaru, and Sanzaru did manage to pitch this remake to Sony? Well, had the project been given the green light, it's possible the game could have been greenlit and released within 2 to 3 years of a PS5's lifespan, and 2 years after this pitch was Jak and Daxter's 20th anniversary in 2021. They could have announced it with a teaser at that year's showcase, which would have helped because Rift Apart literally released that year and featured the duo as a cameo. And they could have easily released it in the following year or so. I'm telling you, having both series have brand new, dedicated releases on the same console generation again, since the PS2, not counting collections, I'm telling you, I would love to be in that timeline. But we're not. And unfortunately, Sony seems to be way too invested in the live-action movie-like games and the live service games to actually care about their back catalog of legacy IP that people still care about, and that people are still screaming and hollering from the highest peaks that they would love to see stuff like Sly Cooper and Jak and Daxter and Gravity Rush come back. Because PlayStation is known for its single-player and even experimental games, from the PS2 all the way to the PS4. There was a lot more variety than there's been for this PS5 generation, which I think we're starting to see make a comeback in the past few years, with games like Astrobot and Sons of Sparta. Astrobot, as I've made plenty known on this channel, took home Game of the Year in 2024. Celebrating PlayStation's vast history that's mostly forgotten by Sony themselves. Jak and Daxter included outside of merch, and becoming the 4th first-party Sony platformer this generation. Sons of Sparta was very experimental for that series. They even brought in a third-party studio to develop it. A partnership was formed with Bandai Namco to remaster Patapon 1 and 2, and create a brand new Hot Shots Golf. Not just releasing on PS5, but also PC and the Nintendo Switch, raising hopes that other Japan studio games like Gravity Rush or Ape Escape could also arrive on Nintendo platforms. The legacy and current IP making their way to Switch started with LEGO Horizon, another experimental yet enjoyable title that's best enjoyed in co-op. And it's still so dang bizarre seeing PlayStation's logo in a Nintendo Direct. We're definitely in a crazy timeline for gaming. Though it seems they might be scaling things back when it comes to ports, cause in addition to all the live service cancellations, they're dipping out of the PC space for single-player games. Multiplayer is still going to be multi-platform, so Nixxes is pretty safe right now cause of the Helldivers 2 Xbox port they did. As long as they're still doing ports, Nixxes is fine. The mobile space is still kicking with Ratchet & Clank Ranger Rumble and Horizon Steel Frontiers. Although, as I'm making this, it came out that basically all of PlayStation's mobile branch was shut down. So who knows how long those two games will last, or if they're not going to focus on any more mobile projects outside of those, who knows. But concerning ports and remasters of older games like Patapon, who knows how that's going to go. But just imagine playing Sly or Jak on the Switch, that would be so cool. It's also worth mentioning, considering I'm talking about the return of Sony's legacy IP, that as I'm making this video, a new rumor with a lot of weight behind it surfaced involving the Uncharted series, another legacy IP coming back as Naughty Dog's second single-player project outside of Intergalactic, and that it's been worked on for at least the past 3, 4, maybe 5 years at this point. Now granted, it could be anything but Uncharted, but if the teaser image from the director of Lost Legacy shared happens to involve a cannon in a tropical location, the location in question is rumored to have treasure there, it kinda has to point to Uncharted, I'm not gonna lie. Honestly, I love Lost Legacy. I think it's a much better game than Uncharted 4, so there's your hot take for the day. It's been 9 years since Lost Legacy released, and the last new game in the series we've gotten. So to see that director come back to the series, it sounds like we're going to be in for a treat. And considering the only new project to come out of the series since then was the Uncharted movie. Now, whether or not you liked it, it is getting a sequel. They kinda have to release a game to go with it. And the only choices they'd have to do right now is to release the Nathan Drake collection on PC, remake the first Uncharted, but then why do any research? That doesn't make sense. Golden Abyss on PS4 and PS5, which I would love to see, but I know it won't do much. Or make an entirely new game. Either continue Chloe's story from Lost Legacy, a Nathan Drake game set between Uncharted 1 and 2 or 2 and 3, or just focus on a brand new character entirely. Either way, Sony's digging deeper into its IP catalog, and I'm excited for it. But speaking of movies, it's been known that Sony has at least tried to bring Jak and Daxter back in some way before this pitch, because had the Sly Cooper movie came to fruition, that we've since learned was actually just a pitch trailer that had no further progress attached to it. Rainmaker had the idea of a Jak and Daxter movie, with Daxter himself making a cameo with a brand new model in the RNC movie. Whether or not Sony had any involvement in those plans, we don't know, but I will leave a link to VT and Vivi's video talking all about this one. There's also been the more recently talked about Jak and Daxter movie that's supposed to be in the works from the Uncharted director. I've talked about this one a bunch, and I'll leave a link to that video in the top right corner recapping all the previously known information about it. But there was some info a while back that I didn't get to talk about before, that being the showrunner for The Last of Us show, Craig Mazin, when asked about a Jak and Daxter adaptation during a BAFTA interview for the show. He had this to say.
I'll be there on day one to play Intergalactic. I'll be there on day one to play. If there's another Uncharted, I'll play it. If there's another Last of Us, I'll play it. If there's another, whatever they come up with, Jak and Daxter, I'll play it.
Has it been adapted yet? I don't think it has.
It has not been. I'm sure I think they're adapting everything now.
After this clip released, some of us came to the assumption that he's either hinting that a Jak and Daxter adaptation is happening, or he's just assuming it is because of all the different video game adaptations that are coming out these days. So who knows, I just really want this film to be animated, okay? And the remake pitch makes it even clearer on why the series fits in the animated format so dang well. Now, we are still getting Jak and Daxter merch though, because there's a U2's that I completely forgot about that's still on pre-order and ships in June. To be honest, I still don't know why these things cost way more than Funkos, because I think they're made out of the same materials, but okay. Then there's the Fangamer Daxter plush that recently got announced. It was available for pre-order, sold out, and it's back to being available for pre-order again. These guys also made some plushes for the Sly Cooper 20th anniversary that you can still buy. Now, I know when merchandise shows up, it's not always an indicator of anything. Outside of a few rare instances, like Crash and Spyro, heck, Capcom just straight up used Astrobot to tease the games they were reviving. Literally months later. But publishers do pay attention to merch sales, and if enough of it sells, aka testing the waters, it might be enough to get somewhat enough attention to the series and actually do more with it. If the reaction to this pitch video from the online community isn't enough of an indicator, I don't know what is. Because a lot of the major gaming news sites got right on to cover this. It was amazing. And the original post by eCommunity that started all this has already gotten, at the time of recording this portion of the video on April 2nd, almost 4,000 retweets and quote tweets, 18,000 likes, and over 1 million views. That's just for this tweet, not counting in any other tweet sharing the same video clip around. Even my tweet sharing the official pitch model from the designer himself managed over 1,000 likes, pretty common for me nowadays, and over 87,000 views. And this pitch video being out in the wild now shows that there is demand for new Jak and Daxter content, even if it is from a ground-up remake, which were popular at the time this remake was being pitched. Spyro, Crash, Medieval, and even SpongeBob. Though Medieval didn't quite sell as well as the others, which might have dissuaded Sony from remaking the second, which is also really highly requested. Heck, even the open gold decompilations of the Jak and Daxter trilogy before all this took place shows a lot of ambition in this fanbase, and literally as I'm making this video, they released Jak Free in beta, as these decompilations are essentially unofficial PC ports that do get mod support. Between this and Sonic Unleashed Recompiled, these are truly some of the most amazing projects to come of these fanbases, and that is so cool to see. And I would be shocked if someone at Sony doesn't at least see the reaction from this pitch video, take notes, and potentially scout around for a third-party developer who's passionate about these older PlayStation legends, who would want to introduce them to a new generation. Seeing as Sucker Punch and Naughty Dog, though they would like to revisit them, they either want to prioritize other projects, or very little of those teams who actually worked on those games are still with the studios. Yes, there are the existing ports, not counting the PS4 and 5 ports of Daxter and Lost Frontier. The series overall has sold over 15 million copies as of 2017. But the currently available ports aren't necessarily, I would assume, having as much of a reach as a new game or a remake would, mainly because they don't get advertised outside PlayStation blog posts where they get announced that they're being added to the PlayStation Store and PlayStation Plus Premium, and very rarely get mentioned in tweets showcasing what's in a PlayStation Plus Classics lineup. And if that movie is happening, you'd think they would want a game to go along with it. I mean, for a legendary series like Jak and Daxter or even Sly Cooper, it's the least they deserve, because if not for games like them, that also have fantastic stories by the way, PlayStation wouldn't have reached where they are today. Heck, I'm even convinced Sly kinda inspired Ubisoft's Assassin's Creed series to some extent. Ratchet was the clear inspiration for Akimbot, and I personally get major Jak 1 vibes from Kena. These three have done so much for gaming as a whole, so to do something outside of merch would just be awesome, you know? Ratchet's still around, so let the trio be relevant again, in a big way. People seem to love their cameos in Astrobot and Rift Apart, so go for it. Okay, Daxter's definitely seen some things, but anyways, this video's already became way too long at this point, over just what, a 30-second pitch video? But I've just had a lot to say about all of this. Jak and Daxter, PlayStation, everything. A lot of this I didn't get to discuss before all of this happened, so what do you guys think about this Sanzaru pitch? Would you have been okay with Sanzaru making it? Are there some changes you would make to the first game overall if it does eventually get remade? Whatever thoughts you have, be sure to leave them all down in the comments section below, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the bell in case anything else Jak and Daxter does pop up eventually. So once again, I've been BlueKnight, thanks for watching, I really appreciate the support, and until next time, keep on running.